So I want to talk to you about focusing on the verse 18. No one has ever seen God, but the one and only Son, who is himself God and is in closest relationship with the Father, has made him known. And I want to ask you one question. If God could grant you just one wish, and you could ask for absolutely anything you wanted, what would you ask for? That's the question. And it's a good question because it reveals a lot about your heart, whether you are focused on money, car, or promotion, or health. Actually, I asked this same question last night to my children, and they said they could have a great basketball skill, so they would just surprise everybody, things like that. But in the Bible, Solomon asked for wisdom, discernment, to rule his people righteously. Elisha, he asked for a double portion of God's Spirit. And Moses asked God, show me your glory. So, Moses wanted to see God's face more than anything else. And God graciously granted Moses' request and showed his glory to Moses. But here's the problem. The problem is, in today's passage, John chapter 1, verse 18, the verse that we just read, John declared that nobody has ever seen God. But when you read Exodus chapter 33, we found that God spoke to Moses face to face. So, what is going on here? Did the scriptures actually contradict with each other? The answer is no. But how? John says no one has ever seen God, but in the book of Exodus, it is written that Moses spoke to him face to face. So today my job is to help you understand these two passages, what they really mean. First, the reason John said no one has ever seen God is because God is invisible. You cannot see him. And the reason God is invisible is because God is spirit. God is spirit. In John chapter 4, speaking to a Samaritan woman at Jacob's well, Jesus taught that God is spirit. And he also said, because he is spirit, his worshippers must worship him in spirit and in truth. So, okay then, what does it mean that God is spirit? In 1990, Hollywood Paramount Pictures produced a famous romantic fantasy thriller film called Ghost. Have you seen the movie? Ghost? It was starred by Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore. I know half of the people weren't even born that, at the time. In the movie, Sam and Marley, played by Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore, they're a very happy couple living in Manhattan. And one night, while returning home from a movie theater, they are attacked by a robber who comes out of nowhere, pulls out a gun, and demanding Sam's wallet. So as Sam is about to give it to him, a fight breaks out. And in the middle of this fierce scuffle, a shot rings out, which makes us wonder who has been shot. And the next scene takes us to where the robber runs off. And after a brief moment, Sam is also seen to chase the man. So it looked like nobody was hurt. But when the robber escapes and Sam runs back to Marley to see if she's all right, to his utter shock, Sam finds himself dead in Marley's arms, bleeding. So it was in fact Sam who got shot. But Sam has now become a ghost who can perceive but not interact with the real world. And in his spirit, he realized that his death was not an accident. and also found out that Marley is in danger. So Sam tries to warn Marley but cannot communicate with her because he's a ghost who cannot be seen or heard or touched by the living. It's a very touching love story between a ghost, Patrick Swayze, and a young woman, Demi Moore. But if you have no idea what I'm talking about, tonight might be a good time to go check out Netflix. But by the way, it's actually a PG-13, so be aware. The point I'm trying to make is that you don't see the Spirit because He is invisible. God is invisible. You cannot communicate nor interact with the Spirit, no matter how much you love Him. You cannot interact, you cannot communicate. This is why John said, no one has ever seen God, because He is Spirit. However, there is even more discouraging news today. Not only has no one seen God, but nobody will be able to see Him either. Nobody will be able to see Him because 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 16 it says, God dwells in unapproachable light, whom no man has seen or can see. And Hebrews chapter 12 verse 29 even says that God is a consuming fire. And this is a hard concept, but it's a biblical fact. So don't be mistaken. When the Bible says God is light, and He's a consuming fire, this is not the light we get from the sun. This is the unapproachable light of God. Have you ever tried to stare directly at the sun? Don't do it, okay? Because you will end up with a fried retina. You'll become blind. You cannot really you can look at the moon, but you cannot look at the sun. Scientists say the sun is 400,000 times brighter than the full moon. And in the night sky, only about 3% of the sun's light is reflected from the moon. But that's enough to light up the night sky, the whole night sky. Have you also driven on the Autobahn, facing the sun when it is rising or setting right in front of you? These days the sun really travels low, and the light is very powerful. And you cannot really see what's ahead of you, even when you wear your dark glasses. It is really painful. What I'm trying to say is if our eyes cannot deal with the sunlight, which was created by God, how could we possibly dare to see God, who is light Himself? 1 John chapter 1 verse 5 says, God is light, and in Him there is no darkness at all. And once again, 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 16, God lives in unapproachable light, whom no one has seen or can see. So this is in line with what the Lord said to Moses in Exodus chapter 33. Moses asked God to show him His glory, meaning showing His face. But the Lord said, you cannot see my face, because no man will see my face and live. Then how was Moses able to see God? It was possible because God made a special provision for Moses to see Him. In other words, Moses couldn't see God's glory directly, but he saw God indirectly. What do I mean by that? In response to Moses' request to see the full glory of God, God said, I'll place you in a cleft of the rock, and I'll cause my glory to pass in front of you. But as I pass you, I'll block your view with my right hand, because no one can see my face and live. But after I have passed, I'll remove my hand to allow you to see my backside. So this is what's written in Exodus chapter 33, verse 21. There is a place near me where you may stand on a rock. When my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft in the rock and cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand and you will see my back. But my face must not be seen. So even Moses couldn't see God in the complete fullness of his essence in all of his majestic glory, but was only allowed to see his backside, his afterglow, the twilight of his glory. This is just like you cannot directly stare into the sun, but when the sun goes down over the horizon, you can see the twilight behind it. And that's what God has shown to Moses. So it was not his face, but the backside of his glory. This is because if God showed Moses' glory directly, it would mean his very brilliance of his holiness would consume anything or everything that is impure in his presence. Then what about Exodus chapter 33, verse 11, where we read that God spoke to Moses face to face? It means God did not go through anyone else to speak to Moses. There was no intermediary between God and Moses. The communication that God had with Moses was direct, and it was an intimate one. So, back to today's passage in John chapter 1, verse 18, we learn that no one has ever seen God. Yet, reading through the Old Testament, we find several individuals who actually saw God. The prime example is Isaiah. In Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1, we read, "In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple." Now, how was Isaiah able to see God? He said he saw the Lord sitting on the throne, high and lifted up, and even described God's majestic robe that filled the temple. This does not mean that Isaiah saw God who is unapproachable, but was able to see God who was revealed to him. Even though God is invisible and unapproachable, he does reveal and has revealed himself throughout the scriptures and has seen expressing himself to his people. But the question is, how did God reveal himself? Who did Isaiah really see when he said, "I saw the Lord"? Interestingly, we find that answer in the book of John. Book of John, chapter 12. What Isaiah saw was Jesus Christ. Look at verse 41 in Isaiah chapter 12. It says that Isaiah saw Christ's glory and spoke about him. So at this point, it's very important to understand who Jesus really is. The man called Jesus of Nazareth pre-existed as God. And long before the Father was known to us, he was already revealing himself through his Son, Jesus Christ. We call this theophany, which means appearance of God. God appeared to Moses in the fire of a burning bush, causing Moses to hide his face. And many times in the Old Testament, Jesus has appeared as the angel of the Lord. And the Hebrew word for angel, malach, had the basic idea of one who was sent, a messenger. So Jesus is the messenger. When the Bible calls him the angel of the Lord, he was the messenger who was sent by God to reveal him. God is invisible and God is unapproachable, but his Son Jesus has proclaimed him, the Bible says. He has revealed him. He has declared him, and made God known. The Greek word here, made known, is exogeomai in Greek, from which you get the word exegesis. It means to give a full account in the sense of telling the whole story. John is saying that Jesus is the full account of God's whole story. When the God revealed himself, he did it in his Son. That is to say, outside of the Son, the Father did not reveal himself. But in the Son is the totality of this revelation. Colossians chapter 1 verse 15 says, Jesus Christ is the image of the invisible God, God the Father. And if you read John chapter 14, Jesus said the famous verse, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. But have you actually read the next verse? The next verse says, if you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you know him and have seen him. And Philip said, Lord, what are you talking about? Show us the Father. Then that will be enough for us. Meaning, Jesus, you really are great. We appreciate what you do. You do miracles and all that. We are really impressed. But the Father is the one we need, not you. Show us the Father. That then we'll be satisfied. That's what Philip said. And Jesus was quite startled by his request. And he responded by saying, have I been with you so long, and yet you have not known me, Philip? He who has seen me has seen the Father. So how can you say, show us the Father? Now, what about you? Have you been too long? Have you been with him for a long time, but still do not really know Jesus, who he really is? Perhaps you've been a Christian for many years, yet do not realize that Jesus as who he really is. In that case, you've come to the right place, the right time. Christmas is the right time to know him. The Bible says that Jesus is truly the image of the invisible God. And he is the perfect and complete manifestation of God. According to Hebrews chapter 1, Jesus is declared as the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being. And we know that even his words and actions were not his own, but are simply an exhibition of Father's. When Jesus spoke, it was the Father's authority which was heard. When he worked miracles, it was the Father's power which was seen. Even the expression of Jesus' face were a display of the Father's glory. Truly, he who has seen Jesus has seen the Father. Just like John chapter 14 verse 9 says. And this is a mystery, something that cannot be logically figured out, but which must be revealed to you, to your heart. On this Christmas Eve, even with this mystery, we also find a further deepening mystery found in John chapter 1 verse 14. That is, 2,000 years ago, God was made man in the person of Jesus Christ and dwelt among us. And we even beheld his glory in the face of him, full of grace and truth. In Jesus Christ, God became man and revealed God's glory that was invisible and unapproachable. All that the Father was manifested to us in the person of Jesus Christ. And now it is possible to know God in the most personal and intimate way through his Son, Jesus. And this is good news that is written by John in 1 John chapter 1. Listen carefully. John says in 1 John chapter 1, verse 1, "We proclaim to you the one who existed from the beginning, whom we have heard and seen. We saw him with our own eyes and touched him with our own hands. He is the word of life. This one, who is life itself, was revealed to us, and we have seen him. He was with the Father, and then he was revealed to us. And we proclaim to you what we ourselves have actually seen and heard, so that you may have fellowship with us. And our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. We are writing these things so that you may fully share our joy." And this is also the message for us today, gathered here on Christmas Eve. If you want to see the glory of God, the face of God, then turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face. To look to Jesus is to look at God. To believe in Jesus is to believe in God. To know Jesus is to know God. And to receive Jesus is to receive God. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. Amen?